Hello again, and welcome back to San Diego Comic-Con 2023. I'm your host, Kevin Goswan, as usual. And today I'm here with a very special guest, Sav Rodgers, who is now not just doing a little review on ComicsOnline, but is his own filmmaker. You've got Chasing Amy, the documentary, and I finally get to meet you in person. It's so good to meet you in person.
So nice to meet you in person, man.
Oh, it's been so long. I mean, wasn't that like 10 years ago?
Like 2013 or so. I think it has been 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that has been a long time.
Yeah. So we've come a long way, and you've come a long way in your career as a filmmaker. This is a big deal.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal, I'm not going to lie. Like, to be here at Comic-Con, the last time I was here at Comic-Con, I was 16, and I was not allowed to camp out for Hall H because I was a child. So to be able to be here with a panel and talking about a movie I directed, that's wild.
That is really awesome. So Chasing Amy, give us the brief rundown, at least, on its origin and what it means to you.
The briefest possible recap I can give is that I saw Chasing Amy by Kevin Smith when I was 12 years old. It completely changed my life in that I was a closeted queer kid in suburban Kansas, and it provided a lot of comfort, and it was a literal lifeline when I needed one. And it also presented a path forward for me to become a filmmaker and to find a creative outlet that, brought me all the things that, I dreamed about as a kid, right? Fast forward a little over a decade later, I gave a TED Talk about what Chasing Amy meant to me. Kevin Smith sees it, and it kind of sets into motion the events of the documentary as I continue to come of age against the backdrop of Chasing Amy.
Yeah, so I saw you post this on social media, so I'm going to go put myself into this stupidly. Whatever, just go with it. And I saw you post this on social media, and I was like, Sav's trying to do this thing. Maybe I could help. And I was like, hey, and I reached out. It was the funniest social media thing ever. I was like, hey, do you need any contacts? And like a year later, you're like, sure. After you were like, pretty much, you had already had it all locked in, because I was like, oh, I'll give you Jordan, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's all coming back to me very slowly. I did not check Facebook very often at that point because I was heads down making it. My apologies.
But that's like the funny, stupid part about social media with people who are, acquaintances. Like I say, never met, just like, oh, friend of a friend. Oh yeah, they want to do a review, and then there you were. Do you even remember what the review was?
The one I did for ComicsOnline, it was The Family, starring Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer. I believe I gave it 3 stars.
There, five. There you go. So when it comes to queer culture, what is your greatest vision, your greatest wish for what can Chasing Amy do for everybody?
Gosh, I mean, I hope that people find something that works in there for them. I believe that there are a lot of pathways into Chasing Amy. If you've ever felt alone, if you've ever felt like an underdog, if you're queer, if you love somebody who's queer, if you're just unhappy with how LGBTQ people are treated or the lack of diversity that's allowed within the Hollywood system to be able to tell stories, I think that there's a pathway into enjoying Chasing Amy. My sincerest hope is to be able to continue telling stories that have an optimistic point of view, including trans people, and putting trans people at the center. I was asked recently to curate a list of fun, uplifting LGBTQ films that are mostly comedies, right? But movies I could define as fun. And I couldn't find a movie starring a trans protagonist that fit that criteria. Now, I am not an expert on all of world cinema throughout time, so feel free to send me recommendations if you see this and you're like, I call bullshit. But but regardless, the fact that I couldn't think of one, and I called my producing partner, who's the director of transgender representation at GLAAD, and he could not think of one. Yes. It's a dire need for trans people to be able to be in stories and to see themselves enjoying life, having fun. Our lives are so much more than the worst things that have ever happened to us, and I think Chasing Amy shows that.
Okay, so do we just want to see more representation in just mainstream media so that people can see, oh my God, hey, regular people?
I want to see trans people being funded to tell their stories, and I want a lot of those stories to be fun and comedic and something different than what we've been offered in the past. You know, I think the last 100 years of cinema have taught trans people how to feel about themselves.
What has that been till now?
It's been a bummer. You know, if you think of seeing trans people in movies, in television, for the most part, it's been sad. It's about how people reject us or can't love us, or how the only things that we're able to star in are, you know, big dramatic pieces, which those movies are important, but they are overrepresented compared to the ability for trans people to have fun on screen and to be able to come of age and have problems that, you know, everybody else gets to have.
Fair enough. So when it comes to, you know, this is about, or at least tangential to, Kevin Smith movie, Beyond Chasing Amy, which is fantastic. What's your next favorite Kevin Smith movie? And what is, do you have any favorite lines?
Oh gosh, I love Dogma, and I love Dogma because it operates as if all of the rules of Catholicism are true, and what happens if they're true. I think it's such a clever narrative device for a movie, and it has so much like conflict. It's over the top in some ways. It's so grounded in other ways. I love the ensemble performance there, and yeah, I mean Kevin has so many good lines. I can't even think of one right now.
Were you brought up Catholic yourself?
No, but my wife was, so I've learned a lot about Catholicism.
Oh, right, and she's involved with this too. What's her involvement? I realize we're going to interview her as well, but in the meantime...
Yeah, I mean, in addition to being like moral support for me always, I would say she is the star of the documentary, the comic relief at every possible moment. It would be impossible to tell my story without involving her, and so she was a good sport. She was in the documentary. She's also got an associate producer credit because anything I've ever needed for the movie, she has dropped everything to help me with, and that's, I think it's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Sav. Great to meet you in person, and we can't wait to see Chasing Amy wherever it's next.
Closing night at Outfest and a bunch of other places after that.
Hopefully streaming soon.